And then let's talk a little bit about the emerging tech, right? So when you started that journey, IoT was starting to get a little mainstream, right? It was coming out of the labs, and instead of just the science experiments, it was starting to look a more viable business solution, right? So how was your approach towards data and emerging tech?
Yeah, I mean, it really boils down to how do we, one, reduce risk at the workplace of construction? How do we enhance quality? And how do we improve safety? Those ingredients are key for us to be a premier contractor. They're key ingredients that building owners that we're constructing for want. They want a quality product. They want it on time. Uh, they want it within the financial commitments that have been made, and they want a great asset to manage. And so we were looking at, it's really that collaboration between the field, so our workers in the field, and the technology group to say, working collaboratively together. So rewinding a bit, when I joined the organization, we were called Systems and Technology. I renamed the group in that about 2 years into Business Technology, because we needed to realign ourselves of thinking of the legacy IT, where we came from, which is a bunch of IT people supporting infrastructure in the background. No one knows what they're doing, to a business technology group that actively works with the business on enabling tech. And so that foundation that we talked about, those four pillars, enabled us to go into the IoT space, because now we had a great backbone of cloud and the infrastructure to support it. As you noted, it was emerging tech, but the business said, geez, we have a lot at risk on a job site. And the first one we started with, ironically, and I didn't think much of it at the time, was temperature and humidity. But temperature and humidity wreaks a lot of havoc on things like paint finishing, hardwood flooring, drywall. Rework is costly. Insurance claims are costly. So we started with temperature and humidity at a couple of jobs right here in Edmonton, Alberta, where our North American headquarters is, and quickly discovered that, 5 years ago when we started the journey, boy, what happens if we end up with 20 IoT sensors several years down the road? We can't have a whole bunch of point solutions. So we actually ended up building a product that we call Job Site Insights, that is a centralized platform for harvesting all IoT data, specifically for sensors that we put in the field. And today we have over 20 sensors on that platform. But that journey from temperature and humidity then led us to look at the big risks that we had in the organization. And the next biggest one was water. Our vice president of risk management would tell you that probably every single construction job has a water problem. It's just the question of, is it this big or is it this big? But every construction project generally has a water problem. So we started looking at other categories of risk in our business, and then adding sensory that could reduce those risks, improve quality, to enable us not to have rework, that allows us not to miss schedule and deadlines, and keep customers happy. And so we continue on that journey today. Certainly COVID had an impact on the advancement of IoT and probably every vertical business, but certainly construction, because we were focused on building. But today, we're detecting things like sound, vibration, tilt. We have in situ concrete sensors that understand concrete maturity and strength. And we're not developing those sensors per se. We're letting the IT industry develop the expertise in those sensors. And what we're doing is really focused on using great sensors that are ruggedized for construction and integrating those sensors into our platform, so we can continue to advance the data that we collect at the workplace of construction to make those critical business decisions that allow us to enhance safety, quality, operational efficiency, and reduce risk.
I really like when I asked you about emerging tech, the first thing you mentioned about the KPIs, the key performance indicators around quality, around safety, around efficiencies and stuff. And that's something I would like for us to discuss a little bit more, right? Because a lot of times when you talk about a new technology, that new shiny toy that's out there coming out of the lab, you're always are inclined towards just giving it a go, right? Instead of just having this simple business sense of saying that, what are my key things that I'm worried about? What are the business processes that are driving that? And what are the different actionable insights that I can maybe get from this new technology? And then you go back to the data points, like you just mentioned there, right? How you started out from safety and from efficiency and from quality backwards into the processes that are driving those. So we'd love to have your thoughts around that. And then going back into why having a platform approach, and we'll just talk about job site insights in that context. We'd love to hear out within that context of KPIs, processes, automation, and then the data points collected from sensors and the insights and actionable insight that they can create in the context of job site insights.
Well, there's a lot there in that question for sure. Where to start. It's we have a crawl, walk, run strategy, I would say, as it relates to technology implementation. So we don't start anything with a big bang. We do a small proof of concept, if you will, or a pilot project, if you will, to say, let's try this out. Collaborating with the business to say, we heard this problem. We think we have this solution. Now do we have a job site that we can test it out on? And, whether we're doing it solo or whether we're with a partner, it's got to be a collaboration. Everyone's got to have skin in the game. Everyone's got to agree to what are the business outcomes going to be. And then we prove it in a small fashion on a small job site. If we get good results, we'll take it to the next level. We'll look for things that we should keep doing, things that we should stop doing, and things that we may have missed. So kind of the keep, stop, start. Here's what we keep doing. Here's what we stop doing. Here's what we start doing, and make incremental improvements on that. And so we start with the crawl, what I call the crawl. Then we go to the walk, with those enhancements. And then when we're ready to expand it everywhere, that's our run. And then we'll figure out how to operationalize that across, the 1,000 projects that we do across the globe. And so it takes time though, because we could implement new technology on a construction site today. And if you and I were working on a 36-month high-rise build that we just started a month ago, you and I might not see those technologies for 36 months because construction is a very project-focused business. We've likely already chosen all of our technology for that job. And so it might be too late to insert some of it. And I mention this because you asked about KPIs, but I want to marry that to the adoption curve, which is, we in that crawl, walk, run, we get some good data and we start slow. It's not a hockey stick. We have to slowly grow. And it usually takes about 5 years to get full adoption of technology in construction because of the nature of the work and the length and duration of the jobs and how they're bid on and estimated and priced, which usually includes a whole bunch of technology components. So it's really hard to insert things after the fact. And I mention that because the key performance indicators can be a laggard in construction on a global scale for a company PCL size, just strictly due to the nature of the work. Certainly we do a lot of small projects, but we do a lot of big work now, and the job sizes are getting bigger. We see more billion-dollar jobs today. Billion-dollar jobs are becoming a normality versus 10 years ago. A billion-dollar job would be like, wow, there's a billion-dollar job out there, but there's lots of them today. So that means those jobs are bigger, more complicated, more complex, and they produce a lot of data and information and key performance indicators. And the ones that we measure continuously, Ali, are always around operational efficiency. So yes, for an example, in the sensor space, one of the first jobs we used concrete sensors on, we saved 1,200 hours because we were able to understand concrete maturity and strength faster than a traditional cylinder cast could tell us, which means we could strip formwork and start the next floor of the building that much quicker. So key performance indicator, person hours. I just read a internal post this morning, a job site in Toronto, Ontario. There is concerns about noise. We have sound sensors built into the platform, so we'll be able to continuously measure sound throughout the structure that we're operating in. So if we get complaints, we'll be able to tell whether, and ideally we'd want to avoid the complaint, meaning, are we over X number of decibels? We'll get an alert if we are. So that key performance indicator is, you're too noisy, you're going to interrupt the tenants. That's going to cause concerns for the building owner. Tone it down, or that specific work that we might be doing will have to be scheduled later. The The big one, which I think every contractor should be adopting today, because I think it will be mandated, the key performance indicator of detecting water leaks. Right. So I mentioned earlier, water in construction is the biggest single headache and insurance claim. Ironically, it's the biggest headache and insurance claim post-construction as well in a finished asset. So I think contractors and building owners that aren't implementing water mitigation technology today will be forced to by the insurance industry, in the sense that if it's not done, you're likely not to get insurance during the course of construction and or in the finished building, because the insurance payouts related to water damage are just too high. So key performance indicators around how do we reduce risk, how do we improve operational efficiency, which drives quality. So we use other technology other than IoT sensors to measure quality. We use a product from a company out of California called Struction Site that allows us to do 360-degree photogrammetry that allows us to understand not only site progressing, but really gives us a good view at the quality of the job relative to the schedule. So there's a whole bunch of data in there. Are we on schedule with the work that was supposed to be performed? Does the quality look good? And if it isn't, we can go back and refer to it. But there's other great things that we can do with that technology as well. Post-construction, if the building owner says, geez, we'd love to run a coax cable for X, Y, or Z, where should we put it in the wall? Well, they can look back at the historical photogrammetry and say, okay, well, we know what's running in this wall right now. We know where the riser is, etc. So there's lots of great stuff that can be done with the technology outside of just IoT sensors during the course of construction, and that can't be overlooked. And you can look at that and say, well, there's a whole bunch of very point solution KPIs I gave you that affect quality, safety, and operational efficiency and other things. But there's future KPIs in terms of time savings with other technologies that you can use during the course of construction today that make us a better builder, but allow the building owner to make wise and informed decisions on what they might want to do with their asset.
Right. So yeah. So what I hear as you narrate that whole sort of process that you guys went through, there's a lot of back and forth that has to happen at a very fast pace between operations, technology, and the business, right? And you have to really navigate back and forth in order for you to identify what the right sort of technology combination is, what the right strategy is in terms of business transformation. Because a lot of things that you're going to learn as part of that process. One thing you mentioned that, the crawl, walk, and run approach, as opposed to a big bang approach. Now, how important within that context, how important is having a platform approach to this as opposed to a point solution approach? And how do you think technologies like low code, no code, where you can really get everybody in the enterprise become part of that change process, and making them like business analysts, the line of business users, your business technology group that you mentioned about, and even the programmers, because with all those things back and forth happening, it's not easy for you to maybe functional spec everything first and then get into the design mode and then into the execution mode. There has to be a lot of back and forth iterative stuff that needs to happen, right? Even with the approaches like agile and stuff like that, unless you have a platform, a low code, no code platform, it's really hard to get that sort of innovation agility, as I like to call it. What would be your thoughts with regards to that at PCL? Like, how did you get that innovation energy flowing back and forth across the enterprise and everybody owning that change, as opposed to the developers complaining that you didn't know enough and we started programming, and the business analysts getting frustrated being the middleman between the developers and the line of business users? How did you bring that all about, and how that job sites insights platform became a game changer for you guys?